Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a watch video for you. Today we are looking at a watch that actually holds a rare distinction. There's only this and really one other watch that I can say this about, but here is the Victorinox INOX. This is really about the only watch, I guess the only normal watch that I was interested in owning before I really knew or cared much about watches. Now, there's a big reason why I never owned one, and that is these are stupidly expensive for what you get. Um, We'll come back to that a bit in the review, but even now on Amazon, I think this watch is still going for, 700 bucks or something like that. In the US, it might be around five, but still, that's a lot of money for a watch. For me, anyway. I know those of you who are out there collecting, Patek Philippe's and stuff are like, whatever. But for me, that's a lot of money on a watch. I know, cost is sort of subjective in that way. Anyway, let me quickly show you what comes in the box for that substantial price point. And let me say, it is pretty nice packaging. So this kind of slides over the whole thing. The front flips down. In here, you've got all of your warranty and paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And then inside, you pop that open and you've got the container for the watch itself. It's nicely cushioned. The presentation here, I think, is very, very good. I've just shoved the label in there for now. So I have to say, presentation is very nice, very satisfying when you get yourself one of these. Let's zoom in a little bit and we'll take a closer look at the watch itself. Okay, so here we are, nice and closely zoomed in on the Victorinox INOX. This is the Pro Driver version. There's also a version that is similar to this, but smaller with a 43 millimeter case size and of course lacking the numbered and moving bezel. This one always struck me as the one that I kind of wanted. I would have liked a different color, but I was thinking about getting a red one. The red sold out quite promptly before I could get my hands on it. And this brings me back to my original point there that these are really expensive. However, they've been out for a while, and because of that, they do go on sale from time to time. So if you, catch what I did there. So if you are like me and you want one of these, but you don't really relish the substantial price point, what I would recommend doing is do what I did, and that is to add it to your Amazon wish list and just watch. The stuff on your wish list, when it changes in price, Amazon will give you a notification. All right. And these happen to go on sale, over through the month of April when Juma Shop had a big sale. So Amazon seems to, obviously pay attention to other retailers in the marketplace and follow some of those trends. So if you add it and kind of follow it on Amazon, you may find yourself getting a pretty good deal. That's how I was able to pick this up. I shipped it from the US and it did cost me a little extra in duty, which put the price back up a little higher than I would have liked. But nonetheless, I feel like I did okay picking one of these up for, I think all in, I was around 350 Canadian dollars. Okay. So that to me was pretty good, but you're not always going to get that. I think if you do anywhere around 450 to $500 Canadian, you've probably gotten a pretty good deal on an Inox. Now back into the discussion itself. Why did I want one of these? Well, being a knife guy, I've looked at the Victorinox website for all kinds of different reasons. And one of the things that I noticed on there on more than one occasion is this watch. And of course, their testing videos. So I'm a sucker for, anything stupidly overbuilt, anything ridiculously big and heavy and tough. And so, they have the whole story of 130 tests, which our Inox watch has to survive. And they even have a bunch of videos of those tests. I'm not going to put in videos here or anything like that, but it has to do, a 10-meter drop test, which is pretty common. G-Shocks have to go through that. It has to go through, twisting and pulling and all that kind of stuff. They put it through vibration resistance. So shake this thing around a whole bunch of times. And I think in the video, I'm not going to remember these perfectly because I'm working from memory a bit here, but I think in the video they like put it on a bobsled or something. They run it over with I definitely, this one's easy to remember. I remember they run it over with a tank. They run it over with a fire truck and maybe an front end loader maybe, but a bunch of stuff. They run it over with all kinds of things, you know. Um, and then the other tests that I thought were pretty cool were, you know, the 200-degree water in a washing machine, and then freezing it into a block of ice. And there's one other that involves water that I can't remember now. Maybe it's just put it in boiling water. Anyway, but all of those tests to me were pretty compelling. And as I said, you know, that's add that to what I think is actually a really nice looking watch. Now I do have to say this is probably not going to be for everybody. You know, it's a very bulky, you know, heavy looking aesthetic. I personally appreciate that a whole lot, but I'm well aware that not everyone will go in for that. You know, some people, especially some of my friends that I talk to regularly who are interested in watches, you know, they like these very dainty, slim, lightweight watches that, you know, I get this sort of dressy aesthetic that they're going for. But to me, that's not super appealing. I definitely prefer something bigger and bulky and heavy duty, and so this is kind of right up my alley. Now, with that said, we've already kind of touched on the size, but this is a pretty big, pretty heavy watch. Okay, so you know we've got to be a little bit fair here and point out that yeah, this is not lightweight by any by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. Um, so let's just let's just quickly run through the specs on this. This is 14 millimeters thick, so it is a pretty chunky uh, width there, which I do find, you know, you notice that standing off your wrist. Um, 22 millimeter lug width. The diameter here is 45 millimeters. Now that's different. I think I already mentioned this, but if you go with the non-diver version, okay, it's going to be smaller, 43 millimeters, which is still pretty big, and it's still going to be pretty hefty. Now I do want to show you guys just how much this weighs. So let me just slide in a scale here and you can take a look, because this is definitely not for the faint of heart. All right, so 4.74 ounces. If if you're a folding knife guy, which I know many of you will be on this channel, that'll mean something to you. Just let me put a G-Shock on here, and this is not a light watch either, but it can give you a little bit of a. Sorry, I bumped the tripod. It'll give you a bit of a comparison, like about half the weight. Okay, so definitely not for, again, the faint of heart. Although I guess if you want, just a watch that you'll get a workout just wearing around, maybe it's suitable for that particular purpose. Okay. The other thing I want to touch on is, let's quickly mention, this obviously is a dive watch, so 200 meters water resistant. It is a quartz movement. And I want to touch on a couple of little features here. Sapphire glass, which is very, very nice. Very well protected screw down crown. So that means, the screw down crown here, which is, by the way, decorated with that nice little Victorinox logo, which I do like actually quite a bit. Case back is screwed in as well. Nothing super impressive to see here, but what a screw down crown means, for those of you who are not super familiar with this, and I know, being, just kind of getting started in this, I wasn't, that means that the crown right here actually has to be unscrewed. I'm trying to see if I can get my finger out of the way so you should see it. Almost there. There. See how it pops out like that? So it's spring loaded. So now that it's out, I can start adjusting things, but it's already right, so I'm not going to mess with it. But I just thought I'd let people know what exactly that screw down crown is all about. And the other thing that I want to say while we're doing this is I saw some reviews where they complained about the protectors here, and it made the crown difficult to access, but the back of the crown is fully accessible. And as you see, like as I'm doing this, I mean, I don't really have a problem adjusting it. The other thing I'll touch on quickly, again, because people may not be familiar, again, I certainly wasn't, and I've had watches that did this. I'm like, why does this watch do this? It's kind of silly. But the movable bezel here, okay, it's only going to move counterclockwise, and that's for a particular reason. The idea here is that if you got a dive watch, essentially this is just a really simple way of timing things. All right, so my minute hand is here. And let's say I need to do something, let's say I don't know, I've got to go pick up my kids in 15 minutes, right? So I can set this bezel so that the dot here is at the 15-minute mark. And now I know when this minute hand reaches the circle, okay, then I've got to go pick up my kids at school. All right, so pretty simple stuff. Of course, it's found on dive watches because when you're diving, you have to be concerned about how much air you have. So you can set this to the right time. If you got 20 minutes of air, you set it for 20 minutes and then you're good. This is something I'm only partially familiar with. As a firefighter, we're very concerned about air and air management, but all of our packs are designed with like multiple safety features so that there's no way we can end up running out of air in a structure. I guess, it's probably assumed that someone who's scuba diving or is smarter than the average firefighter. So they're expected to be able to track these things on their own. All right. Which I think is probably legit. All right, so that's how a movable bezel works. In case you've had one on your watch, I know when I was a kid, I had a watch that had a movable bezel like this. It was just a Timex with Indiglo, which at the time was the coolest thing possible. And do you remember they had those Velcro straps? Again, just the coolest way you could possibly go was to have one of those Velcro straps. Anyway, I had one and it had this movable bezel, and I always wondered, what is this stupid thing for? It wasn't until I was much older that someone had a proper dive watch and explained to me what they were all about. So now if you're watching this video. Finally, let's get back to a couple of features here. This is available with a stainless steel bracelet. It costs a little bit more. The rubber bracelet I find actually pretty good, and I just want to do a quick demonstration here. I'll turn it sideways so you can see. There is actually quite a bit of flex in this bracelet, which is nice. This being a little heavier, I find I have to wear it just a little bit tighter, which, for it to be comfortable, that flex becomes really important. So that's worth mentioning. Again, there are lots of options that you could put on here in terms of, NATO straps and stuff like that. All right, so we've covered the size, covered the features mostly. Oh yeah, I guess it is a sapphire crystal, which is worth mentioning, and the reflection seems to be pretty good. So I suspect it's coated here. If we look closely, you can see it has a date window. It's got a little bit of writing, probably a little too much writing for my liking. I do really appreciate the detail here. It's probably not going to be to everyone's taste. There are like extra little indices all the way around this, and will say this. I mean, they're purely aesthetic because the second hand is not moving that slowly that it's utilizing each of those indices. So that's kind of annoying. The other thing, as you can see as I'm talking here, it's not perfectly landing on all of those, which to me is not a big deal. But it would definitely bother some. And at the price point, I would suggest it should be doing that. It should do a better job of landing on there. And you can see it's not quite on the date. That's just because I didn't set it the way that I'm supposed to when a few weeks ago when I set it. Again, to me, this is not the end of the world type of stuff. And I do want to weigh in. I think I've said this before, but I want to say, in terms of, how accurate a watch is, quartz movements are going to be quite accurate. But with that in mind, this is not something I care about a whole lot, right? As long as my watch is within a few minutes, so that I'm not late for appointments, that's really all I ask. And as long as I don't have to set it all the time. So, if it's badly delayed, if it was like, I don't know, 2 minutes off a day, well, that would suck, because in a very short time, you're way out of whack. And I can tell you my wife's car, actually my truck, we both drive Dodges, I drive a Dodge Ram, she drives a Caravan. Both of those clocks are terrible. the caravan loses time, and in fact my truck loses time as well. It's super super annoying, so that I'm annoyed by. But accuracy that's like 15 or 20 seconds out makes no difference to me. When I set a watch, I only set it to the closest minute anyway. I don't even bother looking at the seconds. And I know some of you watching this and listening to this are losing your minds right now, because that would be so inappropriate for you. All right, I want to throw in some comparisons here before we shut this down. I'm already way long, but if you want to watch that is similar in looks and performance and toughness and durability, you like that whole built like a tank thing with all the tests they do for this, but you don't want to spend that much money or you don't want that much weight, the G-Shock 2100 series is a great way to go. Like you can see, these are kind of similar. I like the look of this quite a bit more, but I mean, this is a pretty handsome watch as well, and it has a couple of extra little features that are enjoyable. So this could be a really, really good competitive option. The other thing I need to say is, because of the cost of this, here's my Garmin Fenix 6. The Phoenix 6 is not, it's not as handsome, not as interesting, but it's cheaper, or I mean close to the same price point. The benefit of the Garmin smartwatches is you get most of the functionality of a smartwatch. The only thing you can't do, and this is annoying, although they have some that will, on the Phoenix 6 anyway, you can't answer calls, you can't reply to texts. There are Garmin's which will do that, but they cost quite a bit more. The benefit of the 6 is, of course, it does have the full GPS functionality independent of any phone, which I think is really, really good. The reason I brought this watch in is this is the only other watch that I was really interested in owning before I was into watches, right? I just love the idea that this has a really good long battery life. I love the idea that it can have the GPS functionality, and even if my phone is unavailable or dead or whatever else, I can still use the GPS on the watch to get me out of a bad situation. Finally, I'll throw in one other comparison here just for size. A lot of people, when you say 45 millimeters, they're like, well, what does that even mean? But lots of people have lots of different G-Shocks. So this is the GA100. And you can see this is how big the 45 mil professional diver is from Victorinox. It's the same size as this GA100. And a lot of people have complained about the size of this. And so you're getting the same size, but in full stainless steel, and you get all the weight that comes along with that. Okay. So overall, although I've had a couple of complaints, especially the cost, as I said, the best way to get around that is to watch for sales, because these are older and they do go on sale. I do find this comfortable to wear. I find it really I love the look of this watch. I love the nerd factor of having all these ridiculous tests that it can go through. It is weird. The one thing that kills me about these tests is, like, most of the tests that this can pass, you physically can't pass. So if the watch is on your arm, you're dead anyway, okay, and only your watch is going to survive. But if you get run over by a tank, your watch will be fine, but you'll be dead. If you get put in a washing machine for 2 hours, your watch will be fine, but you'll be dead. If you drop from 10 meters, your watch will be fine, but you'll be dead. And these tests continue to go this way. If you get frozen into a block of ice, again, your watch will be fine, you'll be dead. If you get dunked in boiling water, right? So there's a whole long list of these things. But by the way, I'm going to make that, I think, into like a short video, and maybe they put it on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. So there you go, guys. That's my overall take on the Victorinox INOX. So having said all that, I've shared with you the negatives, the positives, all that stuff. I actually really, really like this watch. I find myself wanting to wear it an awful lot. It has a look to it. It's big and bulky and shiny, so it doesn't sort of fit right with every type of clothing you might be wearing. However, I still like it, and I even wear it when I probably shouldn't, because I find this to be really, really attractive and really, really appealing. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. We will talk to you soon.